Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for stopping right here on my space today. So in today's tutorial, I'll be quickly sharing with you all how to draft a reversible corset pattern. So if this is something you're interested in learning how to do, please continue watching and please don't forget to subscribe as well. So without much ado, I'll just get started with this tutorial. So here are the necessary materials that we're working with in achieving this particular pattern I'm about to draft. I have my ruler, my scissors, my pencil, my marker, and for the materials I have my hair stay, I have my wooden piece for the breast part, and I have this my fabric. So you can see that it is two different prints of fabric. So I'll just get started with the drafting. So in order for you to draft your corset, the two basic rulers you need here are your straight ruler and your curved rule. So I'm just going to go ahead to draft the basic bodice, which is the basic foundation of any type of dress which you want to make. So from the top of my paper, I marked 3/4 of an inch and I went ahead to label that line my shoulder line. So exactly on my shoulder line, I divided my shoulder into two and I have 7 inches. From the 7 inches, I'll make a point all the way down 8 inches. So I'm going to connect these two lines together. So the line which I just made right here now is my armhole line. And for this other line, that would be my chest line. So I'll come back to this my armhole line and divide what I have into 2 equal halves. And I'm going to mark it there, and from that point I came in by 1/2 an inch. On this line I cut my chest line, I divided my bust circumference divided by 4, which is 9 inches, and right here I'm using my curve rule to make sure all those points intercept from my shoulder down to my chest line. So I'm just going to create a neckline of 3 inches wide and 4 inches deep, though I'm not going to be using this neckline, but I'm just creating it for the sake of this tutorial. So if you don't know how to go about how to draft a basic bodice, I'll be pinning the link to that tutorial in my comment section. I have a detailed tutorial on how to do that. So I extended this my chest line and I went ahead to label it so you all know what each line stands for. So the next, I'm going to measure from my shoulder to my nipple, which is my bust point, and I have 10 inches. So I'm going to rule out that line. And I'll also go ahead and label this using my marker so that it can be very clear enough. So the next, I will get my underbust from my shoulder to my underbust, which is 13 inches. I'll rule that out into a straight line, and I'll also go ahead and label it UB, which means under bust. So I'll go ahead now and get my half length. But because this dress is going to actually be kind of crop, I'll add extra 1 inch to my half length, making it 17 inches. And after that, I'm going to just label that my half length on my waistline, and I'll add extra 1 inch, which is going to serve as my hemming or folding allowance. So you can see that I've drafted the necessary lines which you need while drafting this corset pattern. So the next, I'll go ahead to divide my nipple to nipple point into 2, and I have 3.5 inches. I'll mark it on all of these lines right here. And after making these points, I'll simply go ahead and use my ruler to connect all these points into a straight line. So like I said earlier, I have a tutorial on how to draft, a detailed tutorial on how to draft a basic bodice. So please do go and watch that out in case you're not really familiar with that. So for my bust point, I came down by 1/2 an inch, and on my full blouse length, I went out by 1/2 inch at both sides from my dart leg, and I'm going ahead to connect it all the way to this point underneath my bust point. So you can see what I have right here, and I moved over to my shoulder. I'm going to divide what I have from my neck width to my other part of my shoulder into 2. I'll make a point right there, and I'm going to connect it to this my nipple to nipple point. So here it is, and this is all I have for this particular dress. So the next I'm going to do now is to come out by half of an inch from the center front of this my piece, and 1 inch from the side front of this my pattern from my dart. And know that I'm making this point on my underbust line. So this line labeled Juby's underbust, and I went ahead to connect it all the way to the end or base of this my pattern. So I'm going to create a curve from that point underneath my bust point to meet this new point I created just beneath my underbust. So the part you see going towards facing towards me, my hand is my center front, and the other side is my side front. So now from the center of my center front, from the chest line, I came down by half of an inch, and from there I also went in by half an inch from the edge of my paper. So at this point I'm making right here, if you want to maintain your chest line, it's totally up to you. Okay, so right here now, using my curve rule, I'm going to create a curve from that point all the way to my underbust. I hope that this is very understandable and clear enough to you all. Please, if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask me in the comment section. So from down my dart leg, I'm going to mark 1 inch to the side facing my center front, and to the side facing my armhole, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches. So you can see right there. I hope this is clear enough. So I'm going to create a curve just the way we did from the underbust to the from the bust point to the underbust. I'll also create a curve this way to meet my bust point line, but not exactly on my bust point line. Okay, so now you can see here it is, and I'm just trying to connect those two lines to meet each other. So one essential thing with this pattern drafting is you have to be so mindful of the placement of your ruler. Okay, so when you place your ruler properly while drafting, you are definitely going to achieve a perfect work. So you can see how I went ahead to connect one part of my cup to that 1/2 inch I came in by. So right there on my chest line, I'm going to come in by 1.5 inches from the mark where I made from my bust circumference divided by 4, and from that point I came down by 1/2 inch. Please overlook the fact that I raised my tape up. It's just the same thing. I was trying to get 1/2 inch, and I went ahead to extend that line a bit. So I'm going to make a connection from this other part of my cup to this 1/2 inch which I marked just now. So you can see that one thing you can notice right here is my effort in trying to place my ruler properly in order to get any curve I want. So please do make sure that yours intercepts properly and you place your curve very well. So you can see how I went ahead to also connect this way, and it already has a beautiful and nice shape. So the next I'll go ahead to insert all my body measurements. So I'm going to start doing this by measuring what I have on my dart, which is 2 inches, 2.5 inches. I went ahead to replace it right there. You can see it, and I'm extending that line to get to that point. So the next I'm going to move over to my half length. I divided my half length by 4. I made a point right there. I'm going to measure the dart intake I have right here, which is 2 inches, and I'm also going to replace it right there. So you can see, and I'll go ahead now to connect these two lines together, these 2 points together using my straight ruler. So for the other part of this my corset pattern, I will be using a marker at this point to highlight all of these points so that the visibility is very clear. So all these parts I'm highlighting right here are the parts that I'm going to be making use of, and all these parts you don't see me highlight with my marker. I'm going to be cutting all of them out entirely. So you can see one thing that I want you to know here and observe is the placement of my ruler. Okay, so after highlighting all of this right here now, I'm just simply also going to highlight the base of my pattern. Okay, so I'm going to add stitching or sewing allowance of 1 inch. That is the maximum inch I add almost all the time, and I extended this to the other side of my paper, though the folds didn't get to that part because the part I folded wasn't enough to accommodate my actual measurements. So having done all of this right here, I went ahead to use my sellotape to hold that part down because I'm going to be using that side to cut my side front. So after that, now I'll just simply go on ahead to cut this out. So just watch carefully the parts I'm cutting out so you don't make mistakes while cutting yours as well. So I went ahead to cut off the chest line area. So the next thing I'm going ahead to cut off is the center front of my cup. And one mistake I made was not labeling this before cutting this out, but I realized on time when I must have cut out these darts. I now had to label this, my center front and my side front as well, and also label my cups because they're meant to make arrows on the joining parts of your cups and also number them as well. So these arrows are going to help me while cutting out on my cup for the direction I will notch so that I can know the parts that should be joined to each other. So I went ahead now to cut out my cup 1, as you can see right here, and I'm going to work on the other side of the dart. I'll cut out this dart and also cut out the cup area. So please, I say and repeat again, watch carefully so you understand better everything I'm doing right here and the necessary parts that are meant to be cut off. That was why I used the marker to highlight the parts which I'll be making use of, and a pencil for the parts which I won't be making use of. And here is all for the front parts of this pattern paper, sorry, of this corset pattern. And you can see I went ahead to arrange this for you all to see what it will look like by the time I'll cut this out on my fabric. So these arrows I made on my bra cups are very important because by the time you draft or you cut out on your fabric, it will be a bit confusing. So I'm going ahead now to draft out for the back, and I got another piece of pattern paper, and from there, from the edge of that paper, I started off by marking 1.5 inch. So I went ahead to place this my side front exactly on that line, and I'm going ahead to pin. So I'm not adding a zipper to the back part of this my dress. I'm actually going to add loops and eyelets. So that is why I'm giving it this space of 1.5 inches. And I went ahead to trace out every other part the way it is. So if you want the back of your dress more open than mine, you can increase the inches I marked from the edge of my paper. Okay, so I'm just going to give this my back pattern a little curve by coming down by 1/2 inch from that top part, and I connected this way. So I'll just label that and go ahead and cut this out exactly the way it is. So I don't want the back of mine to be too open after lacing it. That is why I marked 1.5 inch, because as I have 1.5 inch here, by the time I cut this unfold on my fabric, if I open it up, I'll be having 3 inches wideness Okay, so here is the reason why I did that. So I'll just make this circle point right here to indicate that these are the parts I'll be fixing my eyelet to. So I went ahead to bring all of these pieces together for you all to have a better view, but this at this time is on fold. So I'll be cutting out on my actual fabric, and remember I showed you all two fabrics. So you can see right here, I cut out my bra cups, I cut out my center front, my side front, and my side back. So watching carefully, you will realize I also have a hairstay cut out here, and I also have, for each pieces, I have about 4 pieces. Same thing for my hairstay. So I also went ahead to add 1/2 inch joining allowance because it is needed at this point. I can see all around on all of these pieces, and you can see where I added all of these. Please take note of all of that, okay? So right here now, while cutting out yours, make sure you also add 1/2 inch all around, excluding the sides because I already did that while drafting. So guys, in the next one, I'll be sharing with you all how to cut out a perfect cup and how to fix this to the sewing and to the stitching part of this tutorial. So for now, that will be all for the drafting part. I split this tutorial into 2, but trust me, it's a very detailed one. So you have to assimilate the drafting part better in order for you to proceed to get to know the sewing parts. So please just stay tuned because I'll be uploading the second part of this tutorial, which is the detailed sewing part, right here on my channel. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've come up to this point, you've not subscribed, please kindly subscribe. I'll see you next time on the same channel. Bye.